So everyone, can we please settle down? And now, since we are done with the internal conflict, let's now proceed to the next type of conflict, which is external conflict. So what comes in your mind when you say external? Can anyone answer? Do you have any idea? Yes, that's right. External conflicts is a problem that is not happening within yourself. So, external conflict, it is a type of conflict that occurs when a character faces challenges or opposition from outside sources such as another person, in nature, or in a society. So from the word itself, external, so it is a conflict or struggle that comes from outside the character. So it's when the character has to deal with challenges or obstacles that are caused by someone or something else, not from within themselves. So, external conflict, it is a conflict that occurs not in yourself but within other others, in nature, and in society. So, there are three main types of external conflict, which are the man versus man, the man versus nature, and the man versus society. But let's first tackle what is man versus man conflict. So do you have any idea what is man versus man is? Yes, very good. It's about a character versus a character conflict. So when we say man versus man, is when a character in a story has a problem or struggle with another character. So it's when people have a problem with each other, like fighting or arguing. So so in a story, the conflict between the antagonist and the protagonist are the main characters in that story. So have you ever read the story of Cinderella? Yes, it is very interesting story and it's worth it to read. So the man versus man conflict in the story is between Cinderella and her stepmother and her stepsisters who mistreat her and making her life difficult, creating tension and conflict between them. So, and also by preventing Cinderella from attending the royal ball. So this conflict drives the story as Cinderella seeks to have or to overcome their cruelty behind happiness. So let's now proceed to the man versus nature conflict. So in the man versus man, the conflict is between a character and the other characters in the story. But in man versus nature, the character's enemy is not another person, but instead a natural world. So, do you get my point? So, man versus nature, it is a struggle or conflict between people in the natural world. So, it happens when a character faces challenges from things like weather, animals, or in the natural world, or even the environmental itself. So, it's like fighting between humans and the world around them. So, in Cinderella's story, when she is transformed by her fairy godmother, the clock striking midnight, it signals that the magic has to end. And Cinderella races against time to return home before her carriage turns back into a pumpkin. Diba ang sasakyan ni Cinderella patungo dito sa Royal Palace is Kalasa, and that is came from a pumpkin. And this conflict adds tension and suspense to to the story a Cinderella struggles against the forces of nature. So that is man versus nature. And lastly, let's talk about the man versus society. So in the man versus man is a character versus a character, and in man versus nature is a conflict between a character and nature. So what is man versus society? Okay, man versus society. It is a conflict between a character and the rules, the norms, the beliefs, or the expectations of a group or a community. So it happens when someone goes against what most people in the society believe or do. So the character is mo against siya sa balaod sa in the society o sa mga rules na dapat sundot o dili. An example of this conflict is the story of Romeo and Juliet. When the young lovers defy the long-standing feud between their families, the Montagues and the Capulets, to be together. So their families are Tugirana, rival or magka-away. So their society expect them to remain loyal to their respective families and not associate with their rivals. But Romeo and Juliet challenge this expectation by pursuing their loves like the consequences. And that leads them to their tragic deaths. So pagkamatay nila, dito pa nagkauli ang two families. Sa pagkamatay ni Romeo and Juliet. So that is an example of what a man versus society conflict is. So we all know that conflict is important in the story. Why? Why is it conflict is important in the story? Because it creates tension, excitement, and keeps readers interested. It's like a problem or challenge that the characters have to overcome, and it makes the story more exciting because the readers want to know what will happen next and how the characters will solve their problem. So without conflict in the story, in the film, in the show, or in the novel, it may seem a bit boring, di ba? Kung may conflict, may nakiamdaman sa story. So it will be boring. So that's why conflict is really important in the story. So now let's proceed to the another elements of the story, which is plot. So what is plot? So plot. So what is plot? So plot is the list and sequence of events in the story, or it is the way how story is presented. So it happens from the beginning to the end. So when we say sequence, muna siya ang pagkakasunod-sunod ng mga pangyayari sa kwento. So that is plot. So just like following directions in the map, the plot guides the readers through what happens in the story, including the main events, the conflicts, and how everything is resolved. So it is what keeps the story moving forward and keeps the readers interested in finding out what happens next. So there are 5 parts of plots, which are the exposition, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, and the resolutions. So what is exposition? So exposition is the beginning part of the story. It's where the author introduces the characters, the settings, and the basic information that you need to understand what's going on in the story. So it's like setting the stage for the rest of the story. So just like when you start reading the story. So the expositions gives you the background information you need to follow along with the rest of the story. Diba? When you read the story, maditsura ba tao? Maditsura ba o thrilling part? Hindi, diba? So, in reading a story or in writing a story, the author needs, the author first thing to do is to introduce the characters, where is the setting, and accompany the story. So that is exposition. So now, when there is an exposition, it will come up and lead us to rising action. So when we say rising action, it is like the build-up of excitement in a story. It is where the tension and intensity increase as the main character face challenges and obstacles. So ano na magkasugod-sugod ang mga problema sa story. So it builds suspense and makes you wonder what's going to happen next. So in a story, the rising action leads up to the climax, which is the most intense moment or turning point in the story. So, as you can see here in the diagram, the climax is on the top. It becomes, in the story, it is the most interesting, most exciting, most thrilling part in the story. So, climax, it is the most interesting and great taking point of the story where the tension reaches its highest point. So in climax, the main characters face their biggest challenge or make a crucial decision that determines the outcome of the story. So it's the moment when readers are most engaged and eager to see what happens next. So ang climax, for you to understand it and simply play, climax it is the thrilling part of the story. So, iba, when you read a story or when you watch a movie, di ba? Kung thrilling yung gani ang part sa story, ang tawag na is climax. Muna ino, hinumduman. Okay? So, since we're done with the climax, let's talk about the following action. So, what is following action? So, following action, it is like the winding down after the most exciting part of the story. So, kung ang climax is ang thrilling part or exciting na narinig ko na, very thrilling na part of the story, ang following action is ano kita is kalmado na ang story. Kalmado, medyo kalmado na mga tauhan na mapakita po sa story. So in a story, following action, it's where things start to settle down or resolve. So ano yun ang hinay-hinay o resolve ang mga problema sa story or sa mga characters within the story. So in a story, the following action follows the climax and shows the aftermath of what happened, and leading towards the resolution of the story. So, unsa man yung resolution? What comes in the word when say resolution? Huh? Happy New Year? No. Resolution is the ending part in the story where everything gets sorted out and explained, or your problem is completely resolved. It's like tying up all the loose ends and bringing closure to the plot. So, ano yung resolution? When we say resolution, ang mga characters in the story is ang tanang problema is na-resolve na, nagka-ulian ang mga two opposing characters, something like that. So, Do you understand resolution? It is where you find out what happens to the characters after all the excitement and drama of the story. So what will our resolution? Remember that resolution is that ending part of the story. So now let's move on to the last elements of a short story, which is theme. So do you have any idea what is theme? Yes, very good. So theme is what a story all about, or it is the central idea or a message that the story is trying to convey. So it's the underlying meaning or the moral lesson that the author wants readers to take away from the story. So themes can be about love, friendship, courage, or any other universal concept that resonates with people. So the theme helps us to see the world in a new way and think about what the story teaches us. So nasabtan ra ang theme. So again, ang theme, muna siya ang tema sa story. It is, di ba, if you're reading a story, have you ever read the story of the Ant and the Grasshopper? Di ba, the moral lesson of the story is to not to be lazy. That every story has a moral lesson. Again, theme is a central message or the moral lesson in the story. So that's all about the 5 elements of a short story. So again, what are the 5 elements of a short story? Very good. It is the character, the setting, the conflict, the plot, and the theme. So, do you have any questions or clarifications before proceeding our activity? None. So I guess you understand what is the 5 elements of a short story. So are you ready in your activity? So in this activity, you will have the opportunity to test your knowledge through a quiz that assesses your understanding of the 5 elements of a story. So following the quiz, you will engage in a creative writing task where you will apply what you've learned by crafting your own story that incorporates the 5 elements of the story, where it contains the character, the setting, conflict, the plot, and the theme. So, am I clear? So, everyone kindly get one sheet of paper. So, I will be providing you handouts. So, before you start answering, please read the instructions carefully. So in this one, we have multiple choice that consists of 10 items. So the direction here is, please read each question carefully and encircle the letter of the correct answer. So in task 2, it's a story creation. So you have to compose or to create your own story narrative. Okay? Okay, I will be giving you 20 minutes to answer your activity. Please observe silence when answering. Okay, I guess everyone is done. So kindly pass your papers in front.